Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, and the Kansas City Chiefs host CJ Stroud, Will Anderson Jr., Nico Collins, and the Houston Texans in a pivotal AFC showdown on Sunday Night Football from Arrowhead. This is a massive game with playoff implications. The Kansas City Chiefs are in full-on must-win mode after dropping a game against the Dallas Cowboys in what I believe to be the most watched regular season game in NFL history. Is right up there in the sense of the viewership numbers for that one. And they flat out gave up points. They gave up yards. Could not stop Lamb and George Pickens. It was a very shocking loss. It was the type of game that we become quite accustomed to them pulling out and winning. Patrick Mahomes was himself. 4 touchdown passes, 260 yards, no picks, a 130 passer rating. But in the end, it was the run game from Dallas. It was big plays in key spots, and they were able to pull out a win at home. And honestly, Dallas sort of saved their season, at least for now. For the Houston Texans going on the road this week into one of still the more hostile environments in the world, they're going to have to do what they do best, and that is play excellent defense. They pulled off a huge win, sort of saving their season a little bit on Thursday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills, dominating Josh Allen. Davis Mills, they get the win with the backup quarterback. CJ Stroud comes back, doesn't play great against Indy. He struggled at times, but the defense was plenty good enough, holding Jonathan Taylor to 85 yards, the Colts to less than 4 yards a carry in a win on the road. And Indy, now they are just a game back of the Colts and the Jaguars for the divisional lead. It looks like the Texans in this one are just going to rely on what they've done the entire season, and that's let Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter get after the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. And frankly, I'm a bit worried. Trey Smith, right? He got hurt against. He wasn't available for that last game. He's the key part of this offensive line. They had to let Joe Thuney go because of the cap hit that he was going to bring, 4th rounder for Chicago. Look how that's turned out for the Bears now, and that team coming together with Thuney leading the way with his veteran presence. And Josh Simmons, the dislocated wrist, he goes down with that injury. And then Jawan Taylor, he left the game against the Dallas Cowboys, and he didn't return to the game. They've got 3 key pieces of this offensive line, and this game doesn't fully look to be a good matchup against Houston. When you look at this Houston team, they're first in the NFL in scoring defense. They're just giving up 16.5 points a game. They're first in total defense. They give up just 266 yards per game. First in scoring, first in yards, all intents and purposes, folks. That means this is the best defense in the NFL, clearly. And where are they the best? Well, getting after the quarterback. The sack statistics right up there near the top. 34 sacks on the season. That's 6th in the league. 12 interceptions. That's 4th in the NFL. You go through the defensive metrics, they are all top 5. Most of them are simply just number 1, which has led this team to be 2nd in the league in turnover differential, another key statistic. So all of the stats back up the Houston Texans in giving Mahomes and this Kansas City offense all kinds of trouble. And now with a run game in Kansas City, you would feel a bit more confident, certainly against Dallas, in a game where all the talk was about Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark. And wow, this Cowboy defense is really starting to come together. And the Chiefs ran the football pretty well against Dallas. They ran it for 120 yards, over 5 yards a carry. Mahomes was good for a couple of scrambles, as he always is in big spots, especially late November, December. That's when the runs become more important, and you can take those hits and those shots because the games are just that important now, and you're in must-win mode for this one. The Colts, they pull out that win. His legs are just a fundamental aspect of his game. They elevate him from being great to being an all-time great player with his ability, when it's all breaking down, to go get 3 or 4 off-script first downs every single game that offensive coordinators that just point towards crucial to having success and getting wins in most games. So that Kansas City rushing attack, you would imagine, would have some success. But Houston, again, you're trying to poke holes in a defense, and there are none. This is the fourth best rushing defense in the league. They only allow 92 yards per game. This is a large part of why they're first in total yards. And Kansas City, when we look at their statistics and how they stack up, right? They're a top 10 offense. Ninth in yards per game, ninth in points per game with 25, fifth in yards at 375 a game. There are no slouches on the offensive side of the football, which I frankly think is incredible because they haven't been fully healthy the entire season on the O-line. And the injuries to Rice and Worthy earlier in the year, they've got the guys back. When they get Rice and Brown's on the field and Travis Kelce is having a resurging year after a very down year last year, Travis Kelce is back to top 5 tight end in the NFL form. There's a case that he's a top 3 tight end in the league with Jake Ferguson and Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, those types of guys for this season. You can throw Tucker Kraft in that list in the way that he's played. Texans fans might be a little shysty about that because Dalton Schultz has been pretty good this year, but he's right in that conversation is Travis Kelce. And as part of the offense, the issues lie in their run game. Kansas City against this Houston Texans defense, they're not going to be able to run the football all that well. I am relying on Mahomes to have 5-6 scrambles to supplant some rushing yards by creating with his legs. Other than that, it's not great because you know he's going to be scrambling, running for his life at times. I really believe the ball has to come out of his hands quickly, throwing at least 20 passes within 6-7 yards of the line of scrimmage, underneath, quick, utilizing that speed laterally. I feel like if this game was played on a college field with college hashes where everything's spread out and wider and you can get guys into space a bit easier, it's a much better matchup for the Chiefs. It's the NFL. You got condensed hash marks. It's a much tougher game for Kansas City because there's less space. The athletes are a lot tighter together, and that's where it gets to an advantage for this Houston Texans defense. And frankly, let's talk about Derek Stingley. He's number 2 in the league. I know some Texans fans, they want to talk about him being number 1. Look, Pat Surtain, we would probably all agree, is in a world of his own. Derek Stingley's right behind him. I don't want to hear any arguments for who's probably the second best corner in the NFL. It's Derek Stingley. He matches up well with anybody. He's going to get his looks at Worthy. He'll get his opportunities with Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown. He's going to be covering all of them. And frankly, this is a guy that goes out there and shuts his mouth. I think it's 4 or 5 games on the season where he's allowed 10 or less yards and targeted, ridiculous type numbers. He comes down and tackles well. Lassiter is another really good player. I'm a big fan of Kalen Bullock. I'm out here on the West Coast in California. Got to see Kalen Bullock play quite a bit at USC. Big fan of his work. Number 7 he used to wear on those Trojan defenses. A lengthy, rangy player with good sideline ability. He'll come down and tackle. This is a Houston Texans defense that I believe can hold Kansas City to around 20 points. Around 20 points is that margin. And if I'm DeMeco Ryans, that's the target number. Can we hold KC to 20? That means 3 touchdowns and we win. We can muster 3 touchdowns, or I think it's a little bit tougher to score 2 touchdowns, and that'll probably mean you got to kick 3 field goals. Can we score 3 touchdowns and beat the Chiefs? It's that simple. Muster that many drives. And that's where the question looms, in my opinion, of this game. I fully, emphatically believe they can hold this Kansas City offense to that number. They're far better than what the Dallas Cowboys have to offer and run out there from a schematic standpoint and what they run. They're far more aggressive and much better pass rush. Athletes like Azeez Al-Shire roaming the middle, hitting guys. There's 6-7 players that are monsters on this back end and in this defense. And for a Chiefs team that's lost 3 of their last 4, the tough one on the road to the Bills, the tough one at the Denver Broncos, the game against the Cowboys, but we start to look at it, this Chiefs team is pretty dang good at home. And you go through their schedule, they haven't lost at home since the Philadelphia Eagles game. That's their only home loss this season. the Chargers game, right, down south. But they beat the Ravens at home, beat the Lions, beat the Raiders, beat the Commanders, beat the Colts. That they're 5-1 and at the crib. So there's a sense of confidence, right? You look at the loss to the Jaguars, that's on the road on Monday nights, and the losses we just mentioned. This is a far better team at home. I think that people are selling this Chiefs team short in this game, and then they've got the Chargers next week. That's a game at home. The Broncos game on Christmas, that's at home. So for those people that are shooting down the Kansas City Chiefs and are writing them off, Chiefs aren't writing back because they know what they got. And they got the best home field advantage in the National Football League. Truly, it is. For the last 8 years, it has been the best, especially in the month of December. Colder weather comes through. Missouri, we're talking about a Kansas City team that has to feel confident. They're going to have a calm confidence because of what they've been the last 8 years in the month of December, especially in their building. So Houston, LA, Denver at home, and then road games against the Titans and the Raiders. I guarantee you they're not just thinking about, could we go 10-7 to get in? They're thinking about running the table and finishing the year 11-6, going 5-0, grabbing that wild card and saying, all right, now we go on the road. We're in the dance. We're in the playoffs. Because frankly, let's be honest, probably that's what they need to do. 10-7 probably isn't going to cut it for the Chiefs, especially if it's a loss to one of their divisional rivals, Denver or LA. That can't happen. Or Houston would have the tiebreaker over them. It's like they'd have to root for Houston to win the rest of their games and be in a conversation with the Indianapolis Colts and hope that that's the topic of discussion. With a loss to Jacksonville, they lost the tiebreaker. They're running out of comparisons. The Patriots are going to win the AFC East, so they're going to be in a comparison with the tiebreaker for the Bills, and they're going to lose that. Same thing with the Jags. So this Texans game, this is their season. It's all right here. They lose to the Texans, their season's wrapped. 6-7, they're done. Especially in the AFC this year with all those losses to teams that you're going to be compared to in tiebreakers, that's it. But I think Kansas City has what it takes to win this game because of what they have been this year. I'm not banking on previous seasons. That does funnel in a bit to who they've been and the logos that they walk out. Kansas City and what they did to the Houston Texans last year, it wasn't that close. Regular season, somewhat, right? That game, Chiefs pull away. Playoffs, right? Bills, Ravens, tight game. Chiefs, Texans, divisional round, not quite so much. Texans trying to hang around quite a little bit there, but Chiefs were never in doubt to win that game. Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes, and frankly, more often than that, in big games at Arrowhead, it's very tough to pick against him. Do you feel confident enough that this Houston Texans offense can score more than 20 points to beat them? That's the question. Because we talked about the defensive statistics. The Chiefs aren't no slouch still by Spagnuolo. Coach Spags is still one of the best to do it. They're 7th in scoring defense, 19 points per game, 9th in total yards, only allowing 307 yards a game. I think they win this game 20-19. I know it's a wild statistic, but they're giving up 19. I believe that they can give up 19 points and win this game on a game-winning field goal potentially. Patrick Mahomes gets it back 46 seconds, down 19-17. Harrison Butker, maybe he's been a bit embattled, but they'll trust him with the big kick. The big discrepancy that you'll talk a little bit about is the Chiefs are 27th in sacks with 22 sacks on the year. But against the Houston Texans offensive line and CJ Stroud with the concussion and him being knocked out, this is not a great offensive line. No one's going to be confusing the Texans offensive line with what the Colts are working with, or what the Broncos are working with, Chicago Bears are working with, teams like that are just running the football down people's throats and they're protecting their quarterback. No, both of these two offensive lines in Houston and Kansas City have been quite poor throughout the whole year. Patrick Mahomes on the season sacked 27 times. That's unacceptable for the Chiefs. And that's what happens when you lose a guy like Joe Thuney. You've had injuries to the O-line, and CJ Stroud sacked 19. Davis Mills sacked 8. I'm not a math major. I was a broadcast journalism major in college, but I'm pretty sure that adds up to 27. So both of these teams have given up about that 27 sack mark, which is about the same, which is to say they're just about the same caliber of offensive line, which makes me a bit hesitant to say this statement, but I'm going to say it anyway. If the Chiefs were healthy, they have clearly the offensive line that would be better. I think it's relatively simple to come out here and say that with confidence. Texans were fine letting Laramie Tunsil walk, and the health of a guy and veteran player, that's fine, and they're trying to build towards a younger and brighter future. You can respect that. There's no doubts. But they're going to have to run the football. Nick Chubb and Woody Marks, that's what they're working with in the backfield. It's a good duo. Without Woody Marks, where would the Houston Texans be this season without him carrying the football? 4 wins in a row for this team. They were 3-5, looking dead in the water. Everyone's writing them off. They put together 4 in a row. That's a page out of the Texans book that Kansas City might be ready to come out with. All right, getting written off, 500, 6-6. People are talking about the Patriots, the Broncos, the Bills now. There's no threat to Buffalo. There's no Mahomes. The Ravens look quite vulnerable. And so this is their opportunity, in my opinion, to get a massive win and potentially start that hot streak that they can do to get into the postseason. Do I think the Kansas City Chiefs have a team that could win the Super Bowl? They stack up tough in matchups like this one against Houston, and they won't play a team like Houston at home in the playoffs. That's what's unfortunate. Or they'd go to Denver, for example, or they would go to Indy, or they would be traveling to Foxborough to play at New England. They would have to win all 3 of those games. I would play each of those games on the road in the postseason. And that's a very tall order. So my prediction for this game, like I said, is 20-19. Kansas City Chiefs get it done at home, tight fashion. Travis Kelce, he's a key player that I'm circling. These types of games, the factor that he has been in big spots, he's a guy that I'm circling. He's had the juice enough to be able to be a key factor. The Texans will not be blown out, first of all. They will fully be in this game. There's no doubt that their defense is good enough to keep this game close throughout the entire day, even if their offense struggles to get it going. But look, Collins, bona fide top 8 receiver in the league. Jaden Higgins, the rookie's coming along. Jalen Noel, I really like what they did with the draft with the 2nd and 3rd rounders out of Iowa State. These kids have bright futures. And then Dalton Schultz, still a heck of a tight end. He's really been that target for whichever quarterback's been in there throughout the season and been that number 2 guy behind Nico Collins when these other wide receivers are trying to get a little bit more involved. But ultimately, I'm riding with Kansas City, the team that's been almost impossible to beat in December and January. They've been almost impossible to beat this season even alone in their own home building in their worst season in 10 seasons. So picking against the Chiefs would be ill-advised for me. I think it's ill-advised for a lot of you out there. I'm going to take them 20-19 in this game with their experience at quarterback, experience with Travis Kelce and their defense coming up with enough stops to limit this Houston Texans offense, which frankly, we would be surprised if they scored probably more than 23, 24 points. So if it's in striking distance, who do we trust more with the ball in their hands? We will trust Patrick Mahomes. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Please let me know down below in the comments who you think wins this game. Am I crazy? This Houston Texans defense is just too good. They're going to shut down Patrick Mahomes. Let me know down below. I appreciate you guys so much. Look, this is Blitz with Blender. My name is Josh Blender. I'm making NFL and college content weekly, getting you set and ready for these games that we are fired up about. Look, Big Ten champ game. Ohio State plays Indiana this weekend. I previewed that game. SEC title game. We got Georgia, Alabama. We broke that one down. BYU Tech. All of these other NFL games. Bears, Packers. There's all these fun matchups. So we're going to keep it rolling. Start of the college football playoff, the rest of the NFL regular season into the NFL playoffs. We've got you covered with all these great games. So let me know down below what else you potentially might want to see. But again, I thank you guys so much. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving holiday and looking forward to the rest of the holiday season with playoff football, Christmas, and the new year. Or if you celebrate Hanukkah, that's another one coming up here that we're excited about. So I appreciate you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blender, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blender. To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.